Hi guys, my name is David and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be doing my April wrap-up video. And yes, I know it's a bit late for it or whatever. I should have done this either at the beginning of this month or at the end of April. I did actually record this twice before, but I wasn't happy with either of them. So I deleted the footage, so I am doing it again. So April was a very stressful reading month for me. I read a good amount of books and some of them I really enjoyed. But overall, I was frustrated because I was reading just fantasy and I just wanted to read more of horror or more other stuff besides fantasy. I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoy, fantasy, but it just seemed that I was reading too much fantasy and I wanted just to read more stuff. So before I tell you what books I read, let's just go over to the one of the books and the only book that I DNF'd in April, and this was a very, 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 very reluctant DNF. I didn't want to DNF this book, but because at the time I was pretty sure I was doing 2 buddy reads, it was just too much, and they were both fantasy books, and this one's a fantasy book as well, and it just seemed that I was a bit swamped. Not saying that this book is terrible. In fact, the book that I'm about to show you is probably going to be my favourite book of this year. And that is The Shadow Glass by Josh Winning. I was about halfway through this when I reluctantly DNF'd it, but this is going to be a high priority. Probably on the same level as The Lost Argument of Kings by Joe Abercrombie. So I'm going to do my best to pick up and read this next month. But this one is about a father and a son, and the father made a movie called The Shadow Glass that had all these puppets. Think about Labyrinth and Dark Crystal, more or less the same thing. And when he died, the movie wasn't that popular, and many, many years, the son has to struggle with his complicated relationship with his father and with the Shadow Glass movie and this franchise. And one day he discovers that all these puppets and this world that his father apparently made up in his head could actually be real. And all these puppets come to life and interact with him. It's really, really good. It really is. I actually have a signed copy of this book. It's not personally signed for me. It says, "Long live the 80s," and it's signed by the author. So that's really, really cool. I do have 2 more other signed copies of this book, which I'm going to be doing for giveaways. When I do my review for this, I'm going to be announcing that I will be giving away one of them copies, and in a separate giveaway that I'm going to be doing, where I'll be doing a a mystery box type of thing. I will be including the other copy in that box, but I will go through that in more detail in them videos. I'll make it crystal clear about what you're getting and how many copies of the book you'll be getting. So Shadow Glass was a very, very reluctant read, but I cannot wait to get back into this world. It was so much fun. It really was. So the things I managed to read in April, the first one was Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence. I have a whole video on this on my channel. I did this as a buddy read and collaboration with Chris from Chris Reviews. This is a grimdark fantasy book. Well, probably all grimdark is fantasy, but in case you didn't know. But this focuses around Jorg, who is the main character, who is a prince, and he is a young boy of about 12 or 15. And this just retells his tales and adventures, I suppose, where he has to try to avenge the death of his murdered mother and younger brother. I've been trying to get into Mark Lawrence for a while, and I'm pleased I read this. It wasn't the best thing ever, it wasn't outstanding, it didn't blow me away, but I'm intrigued to see where this story goes and to read other stuff by Mark Lawrence. But overall, I rated The Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence a 3 stars out of 5. Also, all these videos that I say that I've done videos on, I will have links down below in the description. So if you want to watch a video on a specific book, it will all be down there. Next one I read was a author request book, which was called Dead Boy's Game and the Broken Vow by A. David Singh. This is a historical fiction fantasy book based in a parallel version of Rome, and it's very political. Everyone's always trying to be a senator in this world, and we follow a series of unique characters that are very strong, very determined about what they want to do, and it's just a very good book. It wasn't the best thing ever for me, as I am not really big into politics or historical fiction, and the writer knew this, or the author knew this while I was reading this book, but I wanted to go into it with an open mind, and plus I think that they were a bit curious to see what someone that's not interested in them subjects made of their book. But this is book one in a series that they'll be doing, and yeah, I mean, if you're big into historical fiction or Roman culture or politics, then I would definitely recommend this book. I've done a whole video on this where I have a clip from David himself where he goes in depth talking about his book. But I rated this one a 2.5 stars out of 5. Next thing that I read was The Amityville Horror by Jay Anson. This is based on the well-known house over in America that is supposedly haunted, and it just retells the story about how the DeFeos were all murdered by Ronnie DeFeo. They were shot in their sleep, and I believe there were 6 of them that lost their lives in this house. And then many years later, the Lutzes moved in, and this just retells their apparent story of what happened in the 28 days that they stayed in this house before they fled in terror. And you would think that this was a non-fiction book, but this is written in a fiction style, like a linear storyline. I suppose what Jay did was he got all the interviews and archive documents they could get that the Lutzes provided to him, and he got all that and he made some sort of linear story based on the material that he was given. It's not great. I'm very skeptical when it comes to this type of thing. It was very entertaining, I must say that. Whether I believe it, I do not know. I would like to believe that some of this stuff actually happens in some shape or form. But whether it happened or not, this was a very entertaining read. I did a whole video on this as well. As I said, it will be linked down below. But I rated The Amityville Horror a 3.5 stars out of 5. There are other books that Jay has actually written based on the Amityville Horror, or the house that this was situated in. And there are many books, probably fictionalized, set in this house or this building that is out there. I'm in no massive rush to go out and buy them or read them, as they're probably all the same thing, let's actually be honest. But if I come across them, then I might give them a go, but I'm in no rush to do so. But this was an interesting book. If you can find this either online or at a reasonably good price, then I would give it a go. Next thing is, some of you may be aware of that I'm doing a brand new series called Grimm Tuesdays, where I'm on a mission to read everything that the Grimm brothers, or the Brothers Grimm, wrote. So all their fairy tales. And I'm doing videos on all their separate fairy tales. So I've got a collection of some of their work. This isn't all their work, but this is a vintage copy. And this was published in the, or this version rather, was published in the 50s. So I've got to put it down because it's very old. But the stories I read in April were The Golden Goose, which is about a man that finds a goose that's golden in colour, that makes his life more interesting. I'll say that. It was a good way to introduce me to the brothers. So I rated it a 3 stars out of 5. Next one was The Frog Prince. which was about a sentient frog that wanted to marry a princess that was very selfish and wanted to get by on her looks, and the frog just wanted to be the princess's companion and lover, but she kind of tricked him and was trying to weasel her way out of it. And then in the end, it just turned out that the frog was a actual prince. So I rated that also a 3 stars out of 5. And the last grim story that I read in April was the Paul Miller's Boy and the Cat. This is about a boy who works in a mill, and one day he finds this cat that talks to him, and the cat takes the boy to the cat's castle, where the boy is the cat's slave or servant or whatever. It's not mistreated or anything like that. But he's done this for several years, and then at the end, he is set free. And it wasn't the best. It probably is the most least favourite thing that I've actually read by the brothers. Not saying that it was terrible or anything like that. It was just not as the same quality, but it was okay. If you're a fan of cats, or if you're a cat person, then you will like this story more than I did. But I rated it a 2.5 stars out of 5. Next thing that I read was Censor by Junji Ito. Some of you may be aware of that I'm a massive fan of this author and this artist. I'm kind of on a mission to read everything that this guy has ever written or will ever write, as I enjoy his storytelling and his artwork is phenomenal. Just to show some of his artwork in this, if you read anything by Junji Ito, then you know the storylines, you know what you're getting yourself into, you know what the characters are going to look like, because their facial structures are more or less the same and their hairstyles are all the same. And plus, if you are a Junji Ito fan, please let me know if you have noticed this, that a lot of his female characters are more or less the same person when it comes to their facial structures, and they usually got this same sort of hairstyle, very sweet and innocent type of looking person. But this was okay. It had to happen sooner or later. I had to come across something by Junji Ito that I didn't thought that was incredible. But this wasn't terrible, it was just okay. But this focuses around a cult who thinks that they have the ability to mentally put themselves into outer space. It's very complex to understand. And in doing this, they feel that they have the ability to achieve enlightenment and all this knowledge of the universe. And there's this female in this story that they believe is the key for them getting this. I haven't done a video on this, I'm not planning to, but if someone wants me to do a video on this, I probably will. But to probably tell you the truth, guys, I will probably do a video on this at some point. I'll have to reread it, but yeah, it wasn't the best, but I enjoyed it for what it was. So I rated it a 3 stars out of 5. And the last thing that I read in April was a story by Edgar Allan Poe. Like my series on the Grimm brothers, I am doing a series on Edgar Allan Poe, which is called The Year of Poe, which I won't finish this all in the year, but I will do my best. But I'm going all through his tales and reviewing them separately. So the tale that I read in April was called The Facts in the Case of M. Vladimir. This was probably the best story that I've actually read by Poe, and probably the closest thing to horror that I've actually experienced from the tales by this author. It's about a man who is a medical professional, and he gets an individual to be hypnotized, and the reason why is that they want to try to understand life and death. Not sure exactly why or what they're doing, but it's very, very creepy. It's very in your face. I didn't know that this was based in the medical profession because I saw the word case and I thought that it was like a trial, like a judge and jury type of thing. But this was a really good story, and plus I was waiting in a waiting room in a hospital. Not sure what else you would do in a waiting room besides wait, but anyway, I read this story in hospital, not knowing that it was based in the medical profession, and it was probably the best environment for me to read this story. And fun fact as well, I mentioned this in my video for it as well, but this story, when it was published in a newspaper, I believe, and it was regarded as being a real thing. Like the balloon hoax, people believed that this was a real occurrence and something that really happens. But when you read it, you'll be thinking, how gullible are people? But it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. So I rated it a 3 stars out of 5. So that's it, guys. That is my April wrap up. Once again, apologies that this is been uploaded right now at the middle of May. But I wanted to make it and get it out there in case anyone cares to actually watch it. But thank you so much if you've watched my video. It means the world to me. I keep on saying it, but I really genuinely mean it. Thank you so much. So that's all I had to say. So with all that out of the way, have a great day, read some awesome books, and I will see you all in my next video.